This podcast is brought to you by AppsFlyer. In today's digital world, understanding your app's journey from discovery to download is more than just insightful, it's essential. Enter AppsFlyer, the leader in mobile attribution and marketing analytics that allows you to measure the full potential of your marketing efforts, making every ad dollar work smarter. With AppsFlyer, that's your new reality. Dive deep into data-driven insights that reveal exactly where your users come from and how they'll interact with your app. AppsFlyer, where your app's potential meets performance. Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Games 298. 2 weeks away from 300. Mishka, we got to do something. Talk about this.
Oh, so much pressure.
So much pressure for the big anniversary. All right. Here's what we have on the show today. Spectre Divide is launched, and Adam is with us and has some takes on what to expect. Zynga's crypto czar is leaving and taking the crypto project Sugartown with him and a few others. Then the guys are going to do some baseless speculation on what a Supercell IPO could or would mean if it were to happen. It is some crystal ball looking into and should be fun. So hi, I'm Jen Donahoe, strategic marketing consultant at Beta Hat and Jade Inferno. And today we have from Japan, Phillip Black, game economist at Game Economist Consulting.
Thank you. Yeah.
Aaron Kress, principal at Gossamer Consulting Group.
What up, punks?
Mishka Katkoff, founder of Deconstructor of Fun.
Hello, hello.
And Adam Telfer from his office in Canada, because we're not saying what you're up to yet.
Hey.
Wait, it's September 4th. We're supposed to be able to say it. No?
No, not yet.
Oh.
September 9th. You have to wait.
All right. Well, I should have teased
Stay
that.
tuned.
That's like the big thing to tease. So, Phil, what's going on with your travels through the East?
I don't know. I feel like I'm about to leave consulting and just become a crane master. I've spent many dollars on mastering the crane system. I think I'm net positive coming out of the casino, the crane casino. I've won a Gengar.
Impossible. Whoa. You're not there's no fucking way you are fucking positive on those things, dude. You've lost tons of. Get out of here, dude.
There are methods. There are methods.
Sure, Phil is just going like crane machine to crane machine with all of the super weird anime dolls. Yeah, great Phil.
Pretty much. That's been a ton of fun. Arcades have gone downhill. I've just seen a lot of rhythm games everywhere. Drum games. This one where it's like a circle and people tap the circle very rapidly. That's been kind of disappointing to see.
That's just called a drum, a circle that you tap rapidly.
This is different. You tap a screen. There's no drumsticks. The other thing that's been kind of disappointing there is that like I'm still not seeing a lot of like mobile IP first action figures. I expected to be able to buy a lot of Goddess of Victory stuff. Not seeing it. It's still the old anime franchises that dominate, and that just makes me really sad. And I really love to see mobile IP do something at all. All we have is Candy Crush TV show. That seems to be the biggest win, and maybe like some Robio t-shirts for like 5-year-old kids, a decade ago. But it'd be really cool if mobile IP actually existed outside of mobile.
All right. Well, I'll get you a contact at Bandai Namco and see if they'll make some toys for you.
Yeah, license to lose money. Go ahead.
All right. Who wants to talk about the Epic Store?
Me. I tried to install it. Like, Jen, you said you installed the Epic Store. I had so many issues with it because the ads are running everywhere, at least in Europe, on YouTube, on any channel you can find. On YouTube, like they're covering the whole YouTube with the ads. And the installation process is not that simple.
No.
Because like when you tap on the ad, it takes you on a site and then there's constantly error messages. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? And apparently I figured out it's like I was using Chrome and not Safari. So you have to copy the link, then open up Safari and then go to Safari. And then it will say again, error. No, you cannot do that because you have to approve the developer. And then you have to open up your settings and then approve Epic. And only then you go back to the Safari page, if you don't use Safari all the time like I don't, to then install the App Store page. Like it's not impossible. Like this is not super difficult. But that's a lot of hoops to jump. And when you think about like how much they're spending on ads and the hoops there are before you actually get to install from the point of view like, hey, I like this ad. I would like to have Fortnite on my phone. That's not good for their marketing campaigns.
We should have a battle royale of which is harder, getting money out of a Web3 token, which Phil and I just did together, or installing the Epic Game Store. So I installed it on an Android because I'm in the US and I can't obviously do it on an iOS phone here. They make these videos, which are very nice. And so I had to do the 1-for-1, like watch the video, pause it to download it. But I think I would have messed up too, because when I use my iPhone, I use Chrome as well. So that's a good thing to note.
It's interesting to watch how they perform, and especially like if Microsoft is learning anything from it, because I believe they're launching their store next. But Apple is making it
Their
difficult.
store isn't that though.
Yeah, there's no choice. No. It's Apple and Google that are creating all this friction on purpose, in order to protect their customers, which is total fucking bullshit, right?
It's so clearly on purpose. Like the fact that you cannot download it on Chrome, like why? It's just it's so weird. Anyways, if people are it would be interesting to hear in the Slack or in the comments how people are, getting their Epic Store accounts, because like it took me days, because I quit on one point and I was seeing so many ads that I'm like, all right, let me try this again.
All right. So Mishka, what else are we shilling?
Oh, a couple of pieces that we have. So we have podcast dropped this Monday with Dima Dimov, who's the VP of Live Operations at Gameloft. And this is about cross-platform live operations. So he's running Disney Speedstorm and Asphalt Legends. So a lot of this was just a conversation about like how do they approach live operations, and especially on the
Does
on the
Gameloft do live ops? I thought really. Yeah, let me look at some of their games. Let's see what their
look at some of the Disney
game.
Castle game. Like I forgot what was
Spider-Man Runner game. That Spider-Man Runner game.
Yeah, Spider-Man Runner game was. Yeah. I didn't know you could make 160 Spider-Man characters, and they did. So I remember that game really well. Like without steering to Venom. Like before they went to Venom, there was 160 Spideys. Anyway, like I'm really fascinated about how to run live ops on multiple platforms, and with the team size being so big and so forth. It was just interesting conversation. So thanks for Demo for hopping on. And then on the blog side, we got Amit Khan writing about Time Blast. Laura was involved with this one as the main reviewer of anything casual. So he wrote about a puzzle game launched by Wildlife Studio. And I think this is interesting not only because of the puzzle games, but the setup of Wildlife. If people don't know, it's quite unique. So when they chased growth for the second time, they opened up a lot of these like super studios, Supercell, some might call them. And they are all around the world, and they would have like the main creatives, like they would chase down like who made Merge Dragons. And they're like, this guy made it. And like, all right, here you go. Just a massive minimum guarantee, if you will. And they can build their studio, just a team of creatives. Wildlife handles all the publishing. And they set up, I think, like 12 of these type of studios, like X, you name it, and really focus on the creatives, not the big bosses. And so this is one of the games that come out of this approach. So interesting to see how this strategy performs. But till this point, we haven't seen like a big hit. But they've hired, the best of the best creatives around the world.
All right. Let's go on corrections. So I messed up and said that Pal World was a Chinese developer. They are a Japanese developer. Sorry, I read that wrong somewhere. So my bad.
You know it.
I fucked up. This is why we do corrections. Sometimes we're on a podcast and we say stupid stuff, and then usually not me. Usually it's Kress. No, I'm just kidding. So Adam, what do you have on a correction?
Yeah, I've got a quick one. 2 weeks ago on the podcast, I mentioned wishlist numbers for Wukong and for Stormgate, and they were wrong. I used numbers actually from two different sources, and because wishlists are private, the numbers are actually indexed according to ranked differently on different sources. So the difference between Stormgate and Wukong was actually far greater. So Wukong was well over 4 million, Stormgate roughly about 600K. But the point that I made in terms of the discrepancy between wishlists for Stormgate versus their performance still remains. And so we've talked now to VGI for press access. So they've been really kind and actually given us access to consistent estimates for wishlists going forward. So I've gone absolutely bonkers and pulled a bunch of data for this for podcasts. But it was interesting looking at something like Black Myth and their ratio in terms of 15x unit sales versus wishlist versus Stormgate, roughly 0.5x. Unit sales to wishlist in that first week. Just shows you that discrepancy in terms of wishlist as that predictive power and what that ratio looked like between a free-to-play game and that premium go viral type of experience. So kudos to VGI for providing the data and looking forward to adding this in the future. So we'll talk about Spectre Divide in a bit, but I think that's another comp. They had about 900K wish lists going into their launch. So we'll look at their performance in a bit.
Cool.
But let's move forward to headlines.
All right. So just a couple things for me. Roblox Developer Conference is coming up in a few days later this week, September 6th and 7th. So let us know if you go and what your takeaways are. Last year, there were some interesting things about ads and AI, and they actually had some drama. I think there was like somebody brought a gun to the show. So hopefully they're not going to have drama at the conference this year. So let us know what happens there. My other thing is, because we like to talk about franchises, Annapurna has partnered with Remedy to turn the Control and Alan Wake video game franchises into film, TV series, and other projects. Annapurna will also work with Remedy as a co-production and co-finance partner to adapt the upcoming game Control 2. Kress, are you excited? Come on, Alan Wake, TV show. That sounds fun.
Oh, yeah. It was such a successful franchise this time around. Let's just put it on TV. That makes a lot of sense. Adding spice to shit,
They had a Max Payne movie before, like Remedy, with Marky Mark. Yeah. Remember that one?
Oh, really? God, yeah, that should be forgotten. Yeah. Bad vibrations.
Oh, man. All right. So in our Slack, I think there was a really fun topic around Ubisoft and valuation and Bungie.
This is for Kress. This is like agitating Kress. But somebody posted, like I can just do the summary so we can let Kress off. It's basically somebody posted, I forgot who it was, but it posted that Ubisoft is currently valued at $2 billion on the French stock market, and kind of made a reference like, hey, Sony bought Bungie for $3.6 billion, and basically trying to compare those two, but that's a totally different years and times. So, Kress, why don't you give your take?
It's actually not an unreasonable comparison, really, right? Because, like, what is Ubisoft really worth, given how terribly mismanaged they've been over the last decade? I was actually in a pretty good mood until I started reading some of these fucking posts you guys are putting up here and making me react to. this Ubisoft is really bothering me because I'm actually pretty bullish on what they have coming, but they're mis-executing across the board. Like, this Outlaws game was mis-executed from a marketing perspective. I'm hoping the Assassin's Creed game will do well. But the fundamental problem with Ubisoft, and we've talked about this in the podcast before, they are the most mismanaged video game company on the market, right? They continue not to execute against their amazing franchises. And the fundamental reason is that they have way too many fucking employees and they are not executing, and they have an outdated strategy and an incompetent management team. And that is the fundamental problem with this company. The Guillemot family is just not the right leadership for this era of games. They have failed almost every step of the way for the last decade. All the major companies in the space have consolidated amongst a few IPs. Ubisoft continues to chase stupid fucking licenses, IP that does not align with the market, genres that doesn't make sense, pet projects and transmedia that are a waste of fucking money and a waste of their attention. The second thing is that French labor law is fucking ridiculous in this modern era. It makes it absolutely impossible to right-size this company. The mechanics are super complicated, but I will just say, to sum it up, firing employees in France is impossible, and it's a long process and really expensive and just not worth doing. The third thing that is really irritating is that because of this deal they did with Tencent, they secured more of their ownership and voting rights. And given the structure and how it works, they basically maintain this ability to block any type of transaction or management change in the company, which is fucking archaic and terrible. And Yost, so he put together a chart where it basically said, revenue per employee. And this is the fundamental problem, is that they're at $96,000 per employee versus EA and Take-Two are $500,000 per employee. This is why the valuation is at $2 billion. Like, fundamentally, they are just not worth shit in this current structure unless they scale revenue, which they are not. So, conclusion. In any other country in the free world, this company would have been acquired or management replaced at this point due to negligence and incompetence. But because it's France and the Guillemot family have been smart about one thing, taking advantage of these absolute archaic old European labor laws and corporate governance, the Guillemot family, they've been able to maintain this control and ownership and manage this company to the fucking ground. That is the fundamental problem, is that France is old Europe and because of the rules and regulations there, it creates a much more challenging environment to actually manage a public company to the benefit of the shareholders and not to the family, right? So I'm going to end on a positive note because I actually do believe in the long-term possibilities of the fucking Ubisoft thing, is that they have the best IP in the business. I mean, better than EA in many ways, and Take-Two for that matter, in terms of breadth. They have Assassin's Creed, Ghost Recon, Far Cry, Division, Rainbow Six, Prince of Persia, Just Dance, Rayman, like great franchises. And the family should get a lot of credit for building these things up, right? But the problem is that this new environment, this new world order that we are in this game business is just not right for Yves and his family. Like, Yves is a nice guy. I've met him a few times. He's a brilliant person, but the market has changed and they need really new leadership to focus this organization on the current market conditions.
So which is worse, Embracer or what this family has done?
No, Embracer was far worse because it was almost criminal what he was doing, because he knew that eventually things would start to fall apart, right? That the music would stop and they'd be fucking screwed, right? It was only a matter of time. I do believe Yves thinks he's doing the right thing by his employees. And any pushback I would get from that is that, they're employee first, right? But then again, with all the dirty ass scandals that went on in that company, maybe not. But no, Embracer's far worse.
I'm curious, you said on Outlaws you didn't think it was marketed correctly. What do you mean?
It just didn't seem like they had a long lead time of good marketing beats, right? So we didn't have as much, play tests with outlets or assets or kind of like the typical type of long marketing lead for a new game. I've been told that the team Massive is not very good at providing materials for marketing teams to actually market their games. Their focus is on development, and they're an amazing development team. Division is one of my all-time favorites. But yeah, I don't think they did a very good job of getting this game marketed the way it should have, given the high level of quality and the scope of it. They've misfired a little bit on the quality and some of the issues. There's some issues around the game. And I think the Star Wars license is actually not helping right now. I think Disney's managing that fucking license into the ground right now with what they're doing with it. So I think I said this last week, but I just think Ubisoft should have never made a fucking Star Wars game. They should have just kept making the Division. Like, that's the power play these days, is focusing on franchises that you own, focusing on franchises that are good, and expanding upon that and doubling down on those franchises, and stop fucking around with bullshit, right? Goddamn Avatar, are you out of your goddamn mind? Stop it. Stop this stuff, And so it's like one mistake after another the last decade with these guys. But I really want to make the main point. They should have been acquired years ago. Like, if they were acquired years ago, these franchises would have been alive and kicking,
But do you really knock them for pausing Division 3, given Division 2's performance?
I would have tried to innovate around Division.
Because they also had Ghost Recon, which hasn't...
Yeah.
Like, Breakpoint was a low point for that franchise as well. Like, they've got a lot of franchises that they think have got to reinvigorate and make the necessary investments in, right?
Correct. But they should be doing that instead of building Avatar or building a Star Wars game.
They did try to launch all these franchises on mobile. You remember they launched, at least I remember playing Division on mobile. I remember that they were supposed to do the Rainbow Six on mobile. That was like the 12 studios working together.
They had the Metaverse Squad RPG where you could play as characters from the different universes of Ubi.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, fuck mobile. Dude, fuck mobile for these guys.
Remember Colibri?
Yeah.
Colibri was around. That was fun for a while. It was a catch-up. They went even on.
Yeah, Ketchup did a Prince of Persia hyper casual version. I remember even playing that. They were really proud of that. Yeah.
No, that was the only thing smart they did. I talked about this in the podcast. They licensing it out to Asia or Chinese, whatever. Fuck it. That's brilliant, right? Get the cash now, because they wouldn't be able to execute against a mobile at all. That would be another distraction, right?
Yeah.
Along with their fucking movie things and like shorts and all this other bullshit transmedia garbage, Like, stop it. Just fucking stop.
Well, we got the happy Eric on this, this podcast.
You
guys got me
poked the
going.
bear with this Ubisoft thing. That's like
Ubisoft
carrot.
is like the golden thing. I wanted to so we're not going to go through a lot of investment news. Only one thing that I wanted to bring forward. And by the way, before I move to that, so what I heard, I talked to a pretty big French publisher, because I mentioned this thing that Eric keeps saying, that firing people is practically impossible in France. And they said, not really. And they, shave off people constantly off that company based on the high performance expectations. So according to them, it wasn't like that. But anyways, so it might be more of a choice than a legality.
Lies.
I don't know. The only investment news that I wanted to bring forward was the most absurd ones, and we're going to talk about Web3 absurdity. But this is new. It's a US-based mobile Web3 games developer, Gameplay Galaxy, has secured a $24 million. So this is dollars, not tokens, in seed funding. The funds will support the development of company's Web3 game, Trial Extreme Freedom, a multiplayer motorcycle racing game currently in technical testing in India and Philippines. I don't know what kind of numbers they're seeing in India and Philippines, but $24 million seed is like unheard. This is Spike Games raised $55 million seed. This is like, in that realm.
Who in the fuck is investing $23 million in this bullshit right now?
Probably Animoca. Like, who else?
Crazy. All right.
Yes.
Layoff news?
Yeah. First of all, Rocksteady, unsurprisingly, reported layoffs following the Suicide Squad disaster at Warner. That is not at all surprising. Most of them were QA and other things, but other members of the team. Tilting Point, another amazing mobile game company, they're reducing headcount by 20%, 90 staff across all of their franchises, I think, right? So I think they're really struggling, which is not too surprising, frankly. But yeah, those are the two big layoffs that are happening right now. I don't want to be too negative, Nelly, but like even the challenges in mobile and PC console right now, I think it's going to be a little bit grueling for the next, 18 to 24 months in terms of, people falling off. It's a tough time right now, thanks to Apple.
All right. Games, Phil.
Singe is launching in the United States on September 9th, and I could not be more excited. I have been trying to sign a game like this for the better half of my career. Whenever I've run CI servants, particularly with women, and honestly, when I talk to all of my female friends who are getting married, there are a lot of them at this age, the thing that always pops up is they have a fantasy of wanting to plan a wedding. Like, that is one of the attractions. And so someone finally went out and made a game about planning a wedding. And so it's not just a wedding, it's about planning multiple things, hence the name Venue. But I could not be more excited for this game. I am an investor in the team called Super Bloom. Emily Yen is their CGO. She's awesome. This thing is going to go out and absolutely kill it. I'm so excited to get ready to shake up. I guess I don't want to call it the design.
Shouldn't this be on the shill category?
Yeah, I
then?
was just about to say.
This should be in shill now,
This was
right?
the
That's a
shill of the
biased
shills.
I will have KPIs to come back. I have receipts when this mails it. There'll be receipts to update everyone with.
But have they actually done a beta? Like, do we actually know what this game has done?
Yeah, it's in Sensor Tower. I don't want to share anything beyond what's in Sensor Tower.
Yeah, share the. Let's be fucking like honest about it, right?
I mean, we can invite Emily on the podcast.
No. We don't have to be. No.
Yeah.
Hold on a minute. I'm not letting this one go. Wait, what is the game called?
Venue.
This real time.
VENUE?
Let's come back to this. Otherwise, we've got so many huge topics. We should not
It's
go
not
on.
even. It's not even on in beta. I don't even
this-
see it on Sensor Tower.
Yeah.
That can't be good, dude.
Damn.
All right, we'll talk about the launch afterwards. I'm not letting this one go. Moving on.
All right, keep going.
Quick update on Love in Deep Space. If you remember a while back, we covered this. This is the husband-o game RPG that has wild features like doing photo shoots with your boyfriend with action RPG elements. It is doing over $25 million fucking dollars a month on iOS alone. And again, this is just in China right now. We don't know what it's doing on Android. So that's putting it at a $330 billion run rate on iOS alone. I think this thing will probably hit over $500 million this year alone. This genre is super interesting, something to keep track of. So congratulations to them. And along those lines, Infinity Mickey is due to launch later this year as the series goes cross-platform. And just say, buckle in, ladies and gentlemen. Love Nikki was the game that was on iOS for a really long time, which was a Asian dress-up game. And if you have a chance, because this is the thing that I think people are missing when we cover a lot of these Eastern games, is that they're actually pretty successful in the West. And so if we look at the cumulative revenue for Love Nikki, who do you think is number one? None other than the United States, with 29.9% of gross cumulative revenue for a game that has done over 400 million in revenue. When we combine it with China, we're probably looking at over 500 million in revenue. So I could not be more excited for this Infinity Mission game. It is going to be an HD AAA game, so it's a huge jump for this franchise. But this is stuff we continue to ignore, and it is doing gangbusters.
We have a deconstruction of this game on blog. Have had it for like 3-4 years. We were not ignoring it.
Yes. Speaking of something that has been ignored for a really long time, Pokemon's trading card game Pocket launches on October 31st, and pre-registrations are now open. I thought Marble Snap had killed CCGs on mobile, but Pokemon has actually never had a monetized CCG on mobile, which may shock people. There was a TCG a while back on mobile for Pokemon, but it basically was a digital app that imported your physical cards and actually didn't monetize it in any direct way on mobile, which is criminal.
Have you seen the App Store page for this? It looks like a knockoff from 10 years ago. This looks like a piece of shit. I don't understand. It does come from the Pokemon company, but it looks like IP theft is basically what's going on.
They launched a trading card game like 10 years ago, and it also looked like it was made in the 90s. Like it was old.
It's awful.
Yeah.
And by the way, they don't even talk about it being a game until the very last screenshot and the very end of the video. It's all about opening digital cards that look 100 times worse than what Marvel Snap does with their trading cards. This is a travesty for the brand.
Yeah, I don't know if this is true or not, but I think there's some limitations in what they can do with the Pokemon brand on interactive because of their deal with Nintendo and their ownership. Sure. This may be part of the problem, is that they can't really do a real Pokemon game.
So in the contract, Nintendo says specifically you have to make a crappy game.
No.
The only games you can make.
No, you can't make
please.
games. You only can make trading cards things. Like, this is the way around it. This is all pure speculation. I don't know if this is true or not. I'm just saying there could be a reason why Pokemon's not on mobile. It should be on fucking mobile. It doesn't make any sense. Like, it's like, it is perfect.
But there is trading card games on the original Game Boy, right? Like there is Pokemon trading card game for Game Boy.
I guess to his point.
Outside of Nintendo.
Yeah, but then why isn't Nintendo doing this?
They don't do mobile.
There's plenty of Pokemon games on mobile. Everything from Pokemon Quest to Pokemon Unite to Cafe Remix
but maybe,
to Shuffle Mobile.
Kress's point is about maybe the core play pattern of...
Oh, yeah.
There's something there.
Yeah.
But if anybody knows, let us know.
Okay, yeah. All right, Phil, one more, NewZoo?
Yeah, we don't normally cover NewZoo's data, but it's usually stronger than Circana data, so I'd love to make an effort to do more coverage of it. The difference between the two is that NewZoo covers Western Tier 1 regions, so Spain, United States, UK, Germany, et cetera, while Circana data is only United States. And so there's some things that we don't normally see when we talk about NewZoo's data, which is that we get things off Steam. Steam, of course, reports first-party data. So what are the things that we don't normally see that we see here? One of them is just Minecraft. It's a franchise we don't talk a lot about on the cast, mostly because it's hard to get updates on what the numbers are. But according to NewZoo, when you look at July 2024 by monthly active users on PC, number one is Minecraft, and number two is Roblox, another game that we don't get a lot of coverage about when it comes to their PC demographic. And I was pretty surprised to see this.
Cool. All right. Spectre Divide has launched. So it was released on Tuesday, September 3rd, which was the day before this recording. So context on this, Spectre Divide is an amazing developer. So Lee Horn, who's the game director, is a legend, I would say. Ex-Valorant team. He's an Apex developer. It's been marketed as Shroud's tac shooter, where Shroud is a gameplay advisor and has been actively evangelizing the game. So I've been tracking this for the last month, and the hype is real because as big name streamers say, things like Tim the Tapman all jumped on board during the beta, saying that this would be the next big thing. And I have a tendency to get pretty overexcited during these hype cycles, but typically I have to gut check myself because I'm having a bit of deja vu. If we look back at things like Finals or X-Defiant, they all went through similar hype cycles. So for example, Spectre had about 80,000 viewers during their beta versus Finals had about 120K. So both of them were able to create a lot of hype. And then at launch, both X-Defiant and Finals faded away due to retention issues, despite that initial interest. So Spectre Divide is focusing on high skill tactical shooter players, so that's Valorant, CSGO style players, and making sure that they get that high skill right. Their differentiation with players is being able to control two characters at once. But the real question is whether this differentiation will actually create a real lift. Like if we compare this now to finals went up front with saying that destructible environments would be that differentiation, but that didn't really give them much retention. Maybe downloads, but not the retention. So data is coming in from launch. Day one CCU Spectre is about 31K versus finals 200K. And note Spectre is Steam only versus finals had console. Twitch viewership, 32K versus 64K of finals. And what's actually interesting is that both Spectre and finals suffered from lower viewership at launch versus betas. That beta viewership versus launch was cut by about half. So reviews have started out mixed for Spectre Divide, about 50%. This is largely due to technical issues and lack of content, specifically calling out ranked mode for a high skill game, as well as cosmetic pricing versus their value on day one. And the two character aspect being reviewed as kind of not enough to be differentiated from Valorant and CS. Note, these are all single day data points. We'll see what the actual weekend brings, but now it just depends on kind of word of mouth and virality. So CCU can grow. We're watching it today. We've seen it with things like Once Human and Helldivers, where CCU climbed through the first few weeks. But the mixed reviews signal weakness. So I'm hoping they can tackle the technical issues up front and then leverage the streamer coverage to grow CCU from here.
No, it's really interesting. I think there's so much going on now in the world of game launches where there's this massive kind of interest in something, and it seems like players are, really hype about something and then they move on really quickly. And I know that Spectre Divide is a tack shooter, and that, with the cancellation of Concord, we didn't really mention this, but it came out actually yesterday that Sony is giving refunds to everyone and shutting down Concord after a week or 2 weeks, like something very, very short. And I know they're a hero shooter, but I'm just hearing a lot of chatter, and a lot of people are talking about like, okay, what's the future of shooters? And what kinds of shooters are shooters that can live in the market? Is it tack shooter? Is it extraction shooters? So Phil, you'll love to hear about extraction shooters. So I don't know, I called up Stan, who's at Beta Hat Market Research. He does a lot of shooter genre work. And I was like, hey, what's going on with shooters? Where are people seeing opportunity? And I was asking a little bit more about extraction shooters because, that seems to be, as I talk to people, everyone's like, ooh, extraction shooter. And I was like, whoa. Like, why don't we just hold on a little bit? So he gave me 3 insights around extraction shooters, and 3 things about extraction shooters. They're still super niche, and it's really defined by Tarkov, as Ethan always likes to talk about, when he found that game. Hunt is still super small in comparison. Cheating is a huge problem. All PvP games have problems with cheaters, but it's even worse for extraction shooters because losing your loot progression to cheaters hurts more than other games. And then there's the churn. And so the data is there that churn is higher for extraction versus other shooter genres because players don't really know what they're getting themselves into. They think, oh, this is really going to be really accessible and it's popular, and it's really not easy to teach your friends, which is, obviously how many people get in to new games, is bringing your friends, and it has a really steep learning curve. So maybe what we should do at some point is just do a little bit of a deeper dive in like, what's the future of shooters, and where are opportunities? Because I just wanted to let people know that, hey, extraction isn't the holy grail that everyone should be going forward and making a game on. But Mishka, I think you wanted to talk about how, surprisingly you and not me, how influencers are really helping games become more popular.
Yeah, I mean, you gave a good overview of the shooter market, so I'm like, all right, then I'm going to talk what you normally talk about. I'm going to talk about go-to-market then. So what's interesting about this one was their go-to-market strategy, especially the way they use influencers. Now, of course, using influencers, there's nothing new. Everybody used them. The bigger the company, the bigger the checks, and you get the influencers to play, the biggest influencers to play your game for a month nonstop and say all kinds of things. But what usually happens is that these influencers, whether it's, I don't know too many, but let's say Ninja, I remember he was playing certain game, the launch, maybe
Apex.
It was Warzone back in the days. No, it was the one of the Call of Duty ones. And you could clearly see in their feed that they would play that game for a certain period of a launch period and then just go back to Fortnite and whatever they were streaming before. And that is the typical way that companies, and kind of when they want to launch, they call up marketing like, hey, let's put everything like all guns blazing, and one of them is influencers. So there's a check, and you give it to the influencers, and that's part of your launch campaign, and it kind of dies off. What in this game was particularly interesting is that many smaller titles have grown in a way that they brought the influencers early on and kind of made them feel part of the team, part of the development of this game. And so when they are promoting it as something they had influenced over. So they are truly influencer both towards the game team and towards their audience. And I think like this was done in a really smart way. And I believe that there's a stake. I think there are investors also in this company. So they own a part of the success. So of course, the way they promote this game is going to be totally different. And they are in contact with the game team, not just a channel you're paying for a specific amount of time to shill, like Phil did, a certain game that they are affiliated with. And I just want to give a shout out here to A16Z Games. I believe that this is part of their strategy, their go-to-market. I was in one of the webinars back in the days for A16Z, and they're very in tune. I think one of the partners is ex-YouTube head or somebody important in the YouTube concept, and he really talked about this sort of a long tail and like well-structured influencer strategy. And also, since they are a A16Z company, I looked up their total funding at this point as they're entering their launch is $86 million. So that's a hefty check. Like, Kress, what do you reckon is the valuation with $86 million raised?
But if we go into the influencer point here, right?
Yeah.
Like, I also agree with you. Pre-launch, I was like, no, this is the right strategy, the right Hail Mary to get Shroud to be your evangelist, right? And it looked like it was working in the beta. But then you look at these metrics and you say, like, they didn't get the viewership. And actually, even Shroud himself is spending more time on Deadlock than he is on Spectre Divide right now. Because ultimately, Shroud is also influenced and incentivized based on where viewership patterns are right now.
Yeah.
And a lot more people are moving on to Deadlock than Spectre. So eventually he's going to have to say financially for himself, it's going to be a better choice to go to Deadlock, right?
You're absolutely right, Adam. And in this case, the force majeure or the black swan event is the Deadlock. Like,
no one saw that coming. And
like imagine the world, which they probably imagined, without Valve fucking releasing a new game, which is the normal world, and then Shooter in exact same category. If that wasn't there, I think they would be playing this much more.
But then, like, this gets into like go-to-market strategy stuff. But when you can't command your share of voice in this window, do you then choose then to delay? Right? If you watch a Deadlock growing, do you then say, like, look, we've got good beta metrics, but do we then have to delay? Because you just don't get this window. You don't get this spark anytime in the future now.
The way I would have done the way they did it, like push it out as soon as possible, because there's a risk. Like, there's not a risk. I mean, it's a positive thing, but Deadlock might be the next big game. So it's only growing from this point on. And if you release later, it will be already too big. And it's the new hotness and everybody's playing it. What do you think, Jen?
You can't wait to Q4.
No.
I mean, they're about to run into Call of Duty, right? Like, so everyone usually avoids Q4 because of the AAA console madness and Call of Duty. Everyone's playing Call of Duty. So they kind of have to shit or get off the pot, so to speak. They got to go. And I mean, Deadlock's like early access, not even a launch. It's just a new and shiny.
But it's 140K shiny. Like, that's a big shiny.
It is. But then you got to wait till Q1. And maybe their 86 million lets them wait till Q1 until a softer time. Who knows?
You've heard of Heroic Labs by now, and we keep talking about them because in today's mature market, you need every edge to be successful. Rather than spending those precious company dollars on building game tech, focus on building your game and shipping it. Get into your players' hands faster and grow your community. Heroic Labs is battle-tested partner and friend of the podcast. Their tech enables you to be flexible, creative, and scale for success. Heroic Labs has your tech stack covered. Whether you're looking for a world-class back-end game server, an amazing game development framework, fantastic live ops tooling, or reliable mass scalability, Heroic Labs has solutions for all of these challenges. And it's not just us at Deconstructor of Fun praising Heroic Labs. The company works with some of the world's biggest publishers on many of the beloved games. Focus on your game, save a big chunk of cheese, and avoid tech risks with Heroic Labs.
Step into the future of game monetization with Xsolla, the premier partner for game developers seeking to expand their reach and revenue. Xsolla provides a robust suite of tools designed to enhance user acquisition, manage subscriptions, and streamline payment solutions worldwide. Unlock new markets and maximize profitability through their customized, secure payment architecture and dedicated support team. Xsolla, powering game developers to achieve global success.
Let's get to the next topic because, we haven't heard Kress go off enough today. Let's talk about Zynga's Web3 project Sugartown. It's going to move on to a new home with its existing leaders.
Quickly on Spectre Divide, the reality of it is it's like a 60 rated game right now. They didn't deliver a quality game, right? So that's like table stakes.
It's been out for less than 24 hours.
Steam reviews can shift.
It's been out for less than 24 hours. So let's give it a little bit of time before we jump all over it.
And if you look at the reviews, it's a lot of technical issues. They solve the technical issues. They can grow that percentage. That's not written in stone.
All right, so that's overcomable, right? Is that what you're saying?
What's more difficult to overcome is the 30K peak on day one and the lower Twitch viewership. That's harder to overcome because typically this is your peak and you're going to decay from there.
Hold up. I don't think we know that yet. I don't think we know what their marketing budget is. I don't think we know how they're allocating. This was a quick jump from them having the beta to having a global launch. And the question will be, to your point, Adam, will DAU be able to stack? Because this is not a AAA launch. This is not a paid product. This is not Conquered. They can put a little bit less pressure on themselves. They have a little bit more time. I do agree this is a little bit lower than 24-hour period than you like to see. But let's give it a week. Let's give it a week and see if they can stack some DAU or not.
I agree.
There's no business model here either. They didn't have a pre-pack to buy. It's a DLC model? What the fuck is going on?
They have a founders pack and they also...
Dude, they did exactly what you said not to do, Mr. Phillip, right? They'd have no pre-buying of the most interested buyers of anything besides the DLC pack, which is stupid.
They have in-game transactions.
They have one founder pack that looks like a content pack.
Is Phil an investor in this? Let's make that one clear. Phil,
you got to be intellectually honest.
No.
You rip people to shreds for this shit, dude.
So first of all, it was a quick launch from their beta period to their global web launch. So I think it's very hard to sell an early access pack. Although, yes, I agree, they probably should have done it. But I think for the monetization of this game, you got to look at the fundamentals, which is that you have two characters, which have two different sets of weapons, which means you have a much wider base to sell your cosmetics. You have to equip more things. So the matricy of monetization is much higher. So now I gotta buy skins for not only my primary gun, my primary character, but also for my secondary character as well. Because remember, you're utilizing both of them in the match. So I think a lot of those fundamentals are pretty positive. And I'm sure Leathorn is going to kill. This is the guy who put the boxes in Apex Legends post Battlefront 2. Do not count this guy out.
All right. That's positive. Do they have loot boxes in this game?
I do not.
No, they don't.
I haven't looked into this. Give me a week to look into this.
There's all kinds of holes in this shit, Phil. This is not well researched.
He's on vacation. The poor guy.
I'm trying to become a claw master.
For a second.
Claw machine master.
All right. Speaking of bullshit, to refresh the listeners out there, in November 2021, Matt Wolf was put in charge of Web3 at Zynga after a long career at Coca-Cola, marking one of the signs of the coming apocalypse of crypto gaming. And at the time, we called him the Crypto Czar. Well, the time has come. The Crypto Czar has been dethroned, usurped, a coup d'etat. The fall reverberates through the industry, leaving a legacy of both sorrow and reflection on the impermanence of power. Matt Wolf, the first anointed Crypto Czar, is no more. He has moved on to join D20, a spin-out of his group at Zynga, as the CEO, and now is chasing the world of rewarded play, the next shiny penny in the world of mobile gaming. We will see if he can regain the title of Czar at rewarded play, but unfortunately, he is much behind the curve here. There are many more established players out there building these rewarded play systems, and frankly, it doesn't seem very easy to differentiate yourself in this world. So we will see if he can regain his title. But this is from the former Czar himself. Long live the Crypto Czar. Rewarded play is on the cutting edge of innovation, is our only focus. Let us be the first to reassure our holders that our execution will only get better from here, we have assembled a team of some top minds in Web 2, Web 3, Coca-Cola marketing, Pepsi, other packaged goods product that have nothing to do with interactive. And we are more than ready to embark on this chapter more soon. And this is a great quote from our friends at ChatGPT. We honor you as a sovereign whose wisdom and leadership have guided our people through times of both prosperity and challenge. Your vision of the crypto from the exec ranks of Coca-Cola have left an indelible mark on history, and your dedication to the well-being of your subject is a testament to the greatness of your reign. May your legacy continue to inspire and shape the future of our land. Thank you.
God, I feel like there needs to be coronation music or some sort of
Mr. Matt
like,
Wolf. You know what's really funny is that evidently Matt Wolf is one of the coolest motherfuckers you've ever met, dude. Like, he's like one of those guys that you want to get a drink with. I give him a hard time and I'm talking a lot of shit. But at the end of the day, Matt Wolf had no business running a Web3 at a publicly traded company like Zynga. And this is what the result is ultimately. He's moving on to the next shiny penny. Good luck, Mr. Matt Wolf, on the next thing. That is a hot business right now. I've been talking to a lot of people about it. I wish you the best. And you can leave all this Web3 nonsense
but I thought they
behind.
were taking it. I thought they were taking
No.
the Sugartown IP with
No.
them.
They are taking it.
No, he's taking this team.
No,
He's like,
it is
oh,
a Sugartown IP. They buy all the assets. It was
Yeah.
announced in a tweet thread.
for what though? Like,
I
well,
don't
how is that? How does that translate to rewarded play, dude? Like, it doesn't even make sense.
I don't
I
know.
think he's just taking his team.
No, but it was in the thread. Like, you got to remember, like, this is also a good reminder that Web3 is fundamentally just marketing firms at this point because there's no product. You know, here we are. What was it? It's been 2 years, 3 years, 4 years after they announced this thing, and they have no product to show. Again, they have no product to show.
Because he worked at Coca-Cola.
It
He's
just-
not a product guy.
I just can't even believe it. It's still nothing. I mean, this is the Web3 meta right now for anyone that's interested, is that a lot of the platforms have figured out that these tokens, these NFTs, they have value. When you unlock tradability, you allow people to speculate. These things have real value. People are willing to speculate on. And so, okay, maybe we shouldn't just give this stuff away for free randomly, which was the airdrop system. Maybe we should make people sweat a little bit. So everyone is building these quest platforms where you can go out and you can do certain tasks within a particular game, and then you'll be rewarded with the token that you might actually care about. There might be a platform token, or maybe there's a token for a hot game. If you go and play this other game and you get to say like level 7, level 10, they will give you a token for the other game. So it's very similar to what we're seeing with platforms like Misplay. A lot of the Web2 stuff, it's being mirrored in Web3. So, you know, it is what it is. And not only that, like, we are seeing this on Steam. That's the thing that's starting to blow my mind. Banana, still a top 5 Steam performer. The newest one to be blowing up is called Cats. And if you look at the PSU chart for any of these games, you may notice that there's an odd shape. They almost seem to be flat. And normally when you look at a PSU curve, there's a lot of variation. There's, you know, crests and troughs, which are PSU peaks when players seem to log on in certain regions. And so that tells you that they're all bot farms. They're all bot farms. And whenever there's a drop, it's usually a power outage. Nothing has changed in Web3. It still is Web3. And, you know, I wish the team the best in Phillip.
I just wanted to add one other little wrench in this system that happened this week. It could be regulation. So OpenSea has received a Wells letter from the SEC in the US. So this letter, according to the OpenSea chief CEO, alleges that the NFTs sold on its platform are securities. The letter is basically a warning that an investigation is happening. And apparently 70 to 80% of Wells letters turn into lawsuits of the SEC suing them. So this means that there's a little bit more added uncertainty in the Web3 market now, targeting NFTs specifically, with and OpenSea is one of the largest platforms. So this whole Web3 thing is rough. It's rough. All right.
Yeah.
Final thing. What would happen in an alternate world if Supercell went IPO? Or maybe it's a world that we live in a couple of weeks, because we were speculating with some of the recent hires of the new CFOs.
Yeah, this is basically continuum. This is now the third episode, because in the first one, I wasn't on that episode. And Kress mentioned about new CFO at Supercell, Gerard Griffin. Nothing much to look at here, just like the post basically said on the Supercell page. Like, new member of the clan, cool dude, get back to work. But then Kress said, like, oh, Gerard Griffin. Yeah, and then he kind of thought it out loud that this is a person that might take a company public and has that sort of experience to take a company public. And this has been sort of a word on the street speculation in Helsinki that Supercell might go public at some point. Sometimes it has been, discussed for a period of time, sometimes less, sometimes more. But now with the hiring of this new CFO, I thought it would be very interesting to hear a hypothesis of what an IPO would look like for a company like Supercell. So, Kress, what do you think?
All right. I want to be clear here. Like, I've heard jack shit on this, right? This is all based on speculation, based upon Gerard joining, and then some chatter around the campfire about them having desires to go public. But generally, you don't hire a public company CFO like Gerard unless you're planning to go public. And generally, public CFOs don't generally downgrade to private companies unless they're going public, right? That's the kind of way it works, right, for these CFO people. Because maybe Gerard wants to fucking retire and he wants to chill out. I don't know, but at the end of the day, it seems valuation perspective, Brawl Stars have kind of changed the equation a bit here because it's insanely growing the company, right? So it's almost up 100% year over year, according to Sensor Tower, which is huge because they've been on the decline for the last decade. But the question obviously is how sustainable that is. Shareholders are generally looking for longer term catalysts and growth. And the Squad Buster thing is an absolute fucking disaster in the idea of going public, right? That doesn't give investors confidence at all that they can execute on new releases, which is key to longer term growth. They blew tens and tens of millions of dollars on a bullshit launch that was in beta for less than a month or something like that. And the game can't monetize. This is not a good look, right? For the idea of going public anyway. So I don't know. Generally speaking, the IPO market is starting to come back a bit, but there's been almost 130 this year versus 480 in 2020 and 1,035 in 2021. So it's like we're far off those numbers, but we're getting there. But it is very weak for the US, generally speaking.
It's even worse because it's not just Squad Busters, right? Clash Royale is still like the thing that has hurt their portfolio the most because it fell from such a dramatic height and they failed to pick it up. And not only that, like Clash of Clans was the other game that they were supposed to be employing the scale strategy that they employed on Brawl Stars. And honestly, it looks a little soft. It was not a good month last month in August for Clash of Clans is actually one of the softest months they've had on record. And again, it's hard to know with web stores, and I would suspect web stores are pretty big for Clash of Clans. But when you look at this portfolio, it's not a company that's hitting its stride. And that's what you want to be if you want an IPO. You need to be hitting your stride, having a lot of growth opportunities. They've been writing this Brawl Star story almost ad nauseum. And honestly, I'm getting a little sick of it. And I start to wonder how much UA is a part of the Brawl Star story. We've heard a lot about the game design side, but I've started to ask a little bit more questions about the Brawl Star story.
We talked about it. It was a combination of both.
Yeah,
UA
they're doing UA on it, and that's
the
fine.
marketing is putting a big effort there. One of the interesting part about this is what you, Kress, mentioned is the valuation of game companies. Like at Play Venture Summit, we're going through some of the other valuation numbers, and they're really low for gaming right now. And I think it was like between 1 to 0.8, which is significantly lower than what it would be for a SaaS company or even an app company. And so that is one of the key kind of challenges. So, Kress, do you think that, let's say, a stock like this would go public, and it is a very profitable company? That's what definitely is going for them. Maybe not the growth, but definitely the EBITDA is there. Do you think it would have a positive impact? Like, do you think it will be well received? And do you think it would have a positive impact on other gaming stock should it go live? Should it IPO?
No. Well, it doesn't work that way. It generally works the other way, right? So gaming stocks and gaming companies are just not sexy right now anymore because of fundamental problems in the business, generally speaking, in terms of it's a very anemic growth relative to other sectors, including like AI, obviously. I'm hoping that there'll be more attention and more sexiness brought back when the Switch 2 launches in GTA next year. But mobile is still a fucking train wreck, mainly due to Apple's horrific privacy policies. Like they basically suck the growth out of the market, right? And without that, the interest level is going to be relatively low. So that's in the US at least, right? From a publicly traded, like, NASDAQ, NYSE type exchange listing, right? And then it's possibly to go public in Europe, but dude, that has not ended well, folks. Like Rovio, Stillfront, Ubisoft, Embracer, Devolver, Team 17, even fucking CD Projekt is trading at like 60% of its highs, Like Not to mention all these like shit companies in Poland and Sweden that went public that had no business being publicly traded companies. So it's like, are those markets really opportunistic to go public? Anyway, I can't claim to be an expert in the European exchanges, but liquidity seems to be an issue. There's not enough fucking shareholders. The coverage of the banks are fucking terrible. Like, they just don't have enough like kind of liquidity and interest to drive publicly traded stocks in Europe, at least on the gaming side. I don't know about other sectors. So anyway, it's a tough market out there right now.
Last question. What do you think that Tencent's involvement, of course, like they own Supercell, like, 98% of what was it? Considering increasingly stringent regulations on gaming in China and the regulations that might be coming towards the Chinese companies, like we've seen what happens to Russian companies, God forbid anything happens with Taiwan, we could see the similar type of a hammer come in on the Chinese companies. And that puts these companies under a threat if there's a geopolitical crisis. Do you think that plays any kind of a role in your risk scenarios?
I mean, somewhat. I think they're a little bit insulated from that because they're owned and operated in Europe and not the US. That kind of helps them eliminate that kind of risk potentially, but still, it's always the geopolitical risk with being owned by a Chinese company.
Now, we've seen what sanctions can do. That would be very difficult for a lot of companies where Tencent is a significant owner, if that would happen.
Yeah, I mean, and valuation, like I think you mentioned that, the last valuation was in 2021 at $10 billion. So they must be worth $15 to $20 billion now. You're out of your goddamn fucking mind, right? Like
EBITDA multiples, like they are so profitable.
Yeah, dude. And so is King, dude. They got bought for like 10 times. No, they got bought for 6 or 7 times.
That was a great acquisition from Activision.
No, because they weren't growing. It was the fucking meager growth, right? So that's the difference, though, is that these guys are growing because of one game, right? So
yeah.
But the Squad Buster thing is absolutely such a train wreck for them in terms of telling the story, because that's the opposite of the growth story. When you release a game and spend gajillions of dollars on fucking bullshit and fail miserably, that just makes you look horrific. It's horrific, right? The side note here I have is like, look, the Squad Buster fiasco makes it even less sense for them to go public, right? How could they possibly think it was a good idea to release something that was so clearly not fucking ready, right, for the market? So when you're a publicly traded company, the level of scrutiny is like insane, right? It requires maturity and discipline in terms of what you do. Yeah, investors are going to throw up over the Squad Busters launch. This is exactly the type of thing they fucking hate, right? That keeps people away from the space is because it's a hit-driven business and it's unpredictable, right? Those are the two things that make this industry very, very challenging, right? So if they had gone into a publicly traded market showing how they've grown Brawl Stars and potentially how they can grow other franchises that are live, right? That's a great story. And then they pitched the idea of coming out with new games to continue their growth. That's a compelling story. But to release a half-baked title with a less than a month for fucking beta, spending a gajillion dollars on AAA actors on a TV campaign of all things for mobile, it's just fucking foolish and embarrassing, frankly, right? And investors hate that shit. They fucking hate that stuff. And so it's like, maybe Gerard needs a little bit more control over that company, right? Or like maybe they need to hire some more leadership that actually can stop this nonsense, right? So that's the thing that just drives me insane. It's like, if they were trying to go public, they would have never released Squad Busters in that state. So that's kind of my take.
All right. Well, let's end it there. Thanks, guys, and see you next week.
You did it. You made it to the end of the episode. As a fan of the show, it would help us out if you subscribe and leave us a review on the podcast service of your choice. More importantly, are you a member of the Deconstructor of Fun Slack group? If you have 5 years or more of games industry experience, go to deconstructoroffun.com/Slack and apply to join. Join the games industry's best professional community filled with peers always willing to lend a hand. Or subscribe to our newsletter to get all the latest insights from the Deconstructor of Fun content creators. Thanks for listening.